So speaking of which, speaking of the afterlife, you have a Kickstarter,
I do. I
it's
do.
called Junior. Now talk to us about Junior.
Yeah, remember that solo show about my dad that I talked about a little bit ago? Junior is a comic story that I wrote that it started by just sort of adapting a half-hour pilot that I wrote that is set in the afterlife, basically uses the Beetlejuice rules that like if you commit suicide, you have to work and you get a job in the afterlife. And so this is this is a situation. It's sort of like a workplace kind of screwball comedy set in the afterlife, and it has like kind of a Tim Burton skin to it. I worked with for the first issue Marcus Kwame Anderson. He got the Eisner for the Black Panther Party graphic novel that he did with David Walker. And they recently did Big Jim and the White Boy, which I still have not gotten yet, but I'm looking forward to checking that out. And it's the first two issues adapts that story, which basically is sort of breaking down this idea of like what if you didn't know your dad in life? Your dad died when you were very young, but then you met him in the afterlife, and he's turned out to be a deadbeat dad. Like he was like still a deadbeat in the afterlife. And there's all kinds of like supernatural hijinks that ensue. They release a mummy, basically using the kind of Brendan Fraser mummy rules of like, oh, they break a jar and now mummies are loose and things of that nature. And so what this particular Kickstarter is getting out is that the first two issues were Kickstarted already. The third issue is in progress now, and the third issue kind of breaks down more of the netherworld, and we kind of take some of the tertiary characters and explore them in short stories. And I was also like, oh, what are are there superheroes in the afterlife? What are what are some of these? What's that? What's that like? And so I have these guys called the Unalive Avengers who are who are dead and in charge of keeping the peace in the netherworld. And so that's one of the big
That
stories
is
that I'm
a
excited about
mouthful.
in that one.
That's a
Yeah.
mouthful. It's the
Unalive,
unalive
and
Avengers.
yeah, exactly. That's literally what happens in the book. Is there's some back and forth of like how to say the name and why is the name like that and what so. Um,
So we have the animatic for Junior, and we're go check it out right now.
oh bless you. Oh bless you.
So go to the rule of 3comics.com. You can check out that link, and we will have that link up in this show very shortly. But you got your hands in everything, my guy.
Right.
Like everything. It's like, what is this?
Arguably too many things. Arguably too many things.
So, Whoopty, you have a question?
Just piggyback of what you said, you have your hands in too many things. You're a writer, you're a producer, you're an actor. Is there any one of the three that you feel like you want to hone into, or maybe you're happy being doing everything?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that writing specifically is sort of my bread and butter right now. And I have been fortunate enough over the last few years specifically to be doing more and more in the comic space specifically. But it's that and animation are kind of the at the forefront right now. And mostly because of the sort of the limitless kind of nature of that. There's a limitlessness to art, to visual art, and there's a kind of limitlessness to particularly 2D animation. 3D animation, there's some limits. Everything that's built and modeled is a prop that you have to pay for, just like you would if it was in live action. So it's not as freeing as one might think. But yeah, and so though I really love how, and I also love the kind of the logic of cartoons, and the logic of comics is a little bit broader, a little bit more uncertain. And so I like playing in that space slightly more than the real world.
I would have to agree, and I would join you there. Good Lord. So you're not just in the comic, or in, well, not comics, but you're in comics, you are in comedy, you are in sci-fi and tech stuff, you are into cartoons. You're also in the late night talk show circuit as well. You've worked on Late Night with Seth Meyers. You've worked on last week, Tonight with John Oliver.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I didn't know about that. I didn't see
I was
that.
about to say, dang. What have you not had?
Wait a minute. When did this happen? I was not informed.
that Renaissance man. What have you
I
not
mean, he's
had?
got a little. I mean, he got a little razzle dazzle going on in there.
Excuse me, pardon me.
Ooh, bro.
Oh,
This
wait.
This man
I
is the kingpin right now.
was fortunate enough to work on those shows. Oh my goodness. Look at the little
That's
yes, I
Princess
was
Zoo.
fortunate enough to work on those shows.
So, what's it like to work on that scene, on those types of scenes? What is the energy like?
Yeah, it's fast. Because they're typically, when they're working on something, it's like, this is going to be out today or tomorrow. It's not like we're doing this for something that's going to come out in 2-3 weeks, or even several months, like the average production that you might be working on.
Mhm.
And it's fast. I remember because Seth Meyers might have been one of the first comedy things I got to do, and it was like I was in a handful of sketches on Seth Meyers, and I remember the first one. John Lutz wrote that sketch and was kind of at the center of it, and watching him work between shots was the most interesting thing to me, because he just jokes to him. I have heard people say this, that we heard like "kill your darlings" saying of, like, sometimes you got to get rid of the some of the jokes that you might find precious or whatever. He did he was ruthless. He just murdered anything that didn't work. He'd be like, no, this is the funny one, we're gonna do this one, he wasn't precious about any one thing that was in a script that he wrote.
Mhm.
If something else was funnier to him, he'd be like, oh, then that's what we're doing. And that had to be 10, maybe more years ago now at this point, but I was just really blown away by like how he worked. I hadn't seen something like that before. So and I think that plays into the what made him, or makes him, I don't know if he's still writing for late night, but what makes him successful as a a comedy writer is that like being that quick, and being able to kind of just move to what they find funny as swiftly as possible.
I can dig it.